and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan, and it's time for our Game Week 12 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. Yes, Game Week 11, the painful game week, is finally over, so we can really start digging in deep on the transfers we want to make for Game Week 12 and making sure we don't panic too much based on last week's results. So guys, if you do enjoy this one, please do drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here. Let's quickly look at the rules of the video. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking about removing but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now but I think they are potential traps for this week that could be avoided if you are that way inclined. Before we go any further, let's have a look and see how we got on last game week. Okay, so considering Game Week 11 was such a disaster game week and so difficult to predict, we actually did okay, like genuinely not so bad. A couple of our buys did return. Johnston and Mbumo doing the business. Simicast obviously unfortunately was benched, and Darwin Nunez, he looked like he was a positive player in that game, got a lot of kind of chances to score, but it didn't quite work out, did it? And in general, the other ones worked out pretty well. The sells in general didn't score very many points at all. The avoids didn't score any points between them at all. And yeah, the keeps, Bowen, Onana, did not so bad for the game week as well. So overall, you know what? Considering it was such a difficult game week to predict, I'm kind of happy with that. 11 out of 16 for that one game week. Let's see how things move forward. I think certainly some of our keeps in particular are players we want to keep moving forward as well anyway. So let's talk about Game Week 12 and what kind of players we want to be bringing in and not bringing in and not selling, I guess. So let's do that. So, for our buys, we're going to put Johnston in the buy category once again. I do still feel like he is the best goalkeeper to go for right now. I think we could see him switch to like kind of Raya as the best goalkeeper in a couple of game weeks' time. I just want to get that Brentford fixture out the way for the Arsenal keeper because he is ineligible to play it against his parent club because Raya is on loan for Arsenal, of course. So, for now, I think Johnston is still your guy. Everton and Luton in the next two fixtures are really nice. We've got Bournemouth coming up as well. But I just think in general, we've seen this before, Crystal Palace, even when their numbers don't look amazing, they just have this knack of keeping clean sheets. It's the kind of team they are, and it's good to see some of their players that have been injured long term are starting to come back into the main team for Crystal Palace as well. So Johnson is still the goalkeeper of choice to go for right now if you need to find a new one for your team. We're going to put Gabriel in the buy section as well. Like, I know a lot of people are thinking about bringing in a new defender with so many injuries and suspensions to our defenders right now. My pick is Gabriel. I think he should be nailed on for 90% of games, which is good enough for me. Clean sheets are going to be pretty regular. We've now seen that Arsenal have now moved to the top of the table in terms of the best defensive numbers in the Premier League. Super unlucky to concede that kind of questionable goal against Newcastle, but it is what it is. Moving forward, we need to pick out the players who we think are going to get clean sheets. And I think Gabriel, for 4.8 million, provides a really nice bargain way of getting into the Arsenal defence, where a lot of the other players are a little bit more expensive. Raya has that kind of issue in game week 13. And, you know, White is a little expensive. Saliba is a great choice as well, though, I have to say. But I know a lot of people are not going to be able to afford those players. If you're looking to replace, you know, Romero or Burn, for example, 4.8 million is probably about the price you'll be looking to find a replacement at. So there are plenty of options at the defender, kind of 4.8 million price point. I like Gabriel the most. That's my preference. I trust him most for clean sheets and starts moving forward. And I'm not going to talk too much about his attacking threat this game week because still seems to be lacking. He still has not getting attacking returns, but maybe that's going to happen at some point or another. Into midfield, and I think Bowen is probably up there as one of the best midfielders to pick right now. And I kind of spoke about this at a little bit more detail in yesterday's stream, but for me, the best midfielders to buy right now are between Saka, Bowen, and Mbumo. I'm going to put Bowen in the buy section today because I feel like out of the three players, when you combine fixtures and form, I think Bowen provides both of those. Obviously, Mbumo has the good form, but not so great fixtures in the next two. And we have Saka, who has very good fixtures, but doesn't quite have the form there. But Bowen's got a little bit of both. So we've got really nice fixtures. We've got Forest at home, Burnley away, Crystal Palace at home. I do think these are fairly decent fixtures. And even after that, Spurs, you know, could be an okay game as well. We do occasionally see Spurs behave Spursily, as we kind of saw in Game Week 11. So you never know what's going to happen in a game like that. But in general, West Ham in attack have been really, really good this season. And they're getting results in general as well. So really positive season for West Ham attackers. The defenders, maybe not so much, but certainly in attack, they are looking pretty good right now. And Bowen is the star player in that attack, in really good form. He looks dangerous all the time, always looks like he's going to be capable of getting attacking returns. And I think he could get a decent haul or two in the next couple of game weeks and beyond as well, because West Ham's fixtures do look good for sort of 8 or 9 game weeks. It looks good. Nice long run of decent fixtures for West Ham since they've played so many difficult ones already this season. And I'm going to put Nketiah as our forward buy. In general, I don't think this is a game week to make a forward transfer, but Nketiah is a nice short-term punt, looks pretty decent against Burnley. I think he might get the Brentford game as well. After that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because we don't know the situation with Gabriel Jesus, if he's going to be available, when he's going to be available. Should note that Gabriel Jesus has been named in the Brazil squad for the international break, so maybe that's going to put me off Nketiah just a little bit, but as a punt, considering there's no real kind of forward transfers I'm interested in making right now, I think Nketiah is kind of the best of a bad bunch, really, as at least as a punt in the very, very short term. Certainly Burnley, you know, if he could do anything like he did against Sheffield United, then he's going to be worth transferring in, even if you have to transfer him back out again. So going to back him in that regard. For ourselves, Ederson is going to be the first player. Very expensive at 5.5 million. Man City still conceding goals, even in the slightly easier fixtures. And now, I mean, look at these fixtures. Chelsea away is not the easiest fixture, but after that, Liverpool, Spurs and Villa, 3 of the most in-form attacks in the entire league. It is not a good time, really, to own Man City defensive players. Even though they are a great defence on paper, you just feel like this run of fixtures is just not the one to own them for. So would be looking to potentially remove, you know, a player like Ederson, who does take up so much of your budget and is unlikely to get many clean sheets over the next couple of game weeks. He has been underperforming a little bit as well. We have seen him rotated with Ortega very occasionally. So in general, just not a player I'd really want to own going forward. Free up that budget, go for a cheaper goalkeeper and reinvest in other areas of your team. And a doggy, I know it kind of sounds like a bit of an obvious one, but I think some people will be tempted to keep a doggy. If you don't have a Burn, if you don't have a Romero, obviously those players are very obvious sells, and I don't want to include too obvious sells in this video because I think, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose. You don't need me to tell you to sell Burn, who's going to be injured for 3 months. You don't need me to tell you to remove Romero, who's going to be suspended for 3 games. A doggy is suspended for just 1 game, which might tempt some people into keeping him if they have no other problems in their team, but I think Wolves is the only good fixture coming up for the Spurs defence. And therefore, if we're missing the Wolves game, after that, Villa, City, West Ham, 3 very, very strong attacks. Just not the one for me. A doggy, of course, not really providing much in the attacking output there either. So I think he is a pretty easy sell, even though I think some people would be tempted to keep him. So it's going to go down on this as a sell for me. Ward-Prowse still playing super, super deep, not really getting involved in the attacks at all. I think he's a pretty easy player to let go. At 6.2 million, there are some replacements you could potentially go for as well. I would be looking for Gordon. I would be having a little look at Brennan Johnson as well. I think he's going to be the main left winger for Spurs for the foreseeable future, whilst there are other injury problems at the Spurs team. And Brennan Johnson is really, really cheap. 5.7, 5.8 million, I believe he is. So really, really nice price for him there. You can make a simple swap from Ward-Prowse to him or Gordon, or of course we do have to mention Palmer as well. Difficult fixtures, City and Newcastle back to back for Cole Palmer, so I don't know if I'd rush to get him necessarily, but he's definitely still an option. You never know when you're going to get a cheeky penalty from him to boost your FPL scores to that 5.1 million price tag. So yes, Ward-Prowse would be a player I would sell for another one of those cheap enabler midfielders who actually got a better chance of getting attacking returns. And Isak is still my only sell for forwards. You know, again, not really too keen on forward transfers this game week. When Isak is injured, you know, he's going to miss this Bournemouth game, might be back for the Chelsea game, but then after that, the fixtures don't look so good. Don't love the Chelsea fixture. Manchester United, you never know what's going to happen. And after that, we have got Everton away, which I do think is a tough one as well at the moment. Everton really improving defensively. So Newcastle forwards, I think they're okay to own for this game week in general, particularly if they're more nailed on. But Isak, injury, bad fixtures coming up, rotation risk, in general, just a player to sell, get rid of, deal with that situation. For keeps, we're going to start off with Areola, a disappointing game week 11, but I mean, who didn't disappoint in game week 11? Let's be honest. But yeah, Forest up next at home. I think now that we're seeing Forest, Burnley, Crystal Palace, 3 much better fixtures for West Ham, we could finally start to see a clean sheet or 2 here, because West Ham have struggled for clean sheets. Their last clean sheet was against Sheffield United, but it has to be said that in general, their fixtures have been tough. They've played against some really strong attacks in the Premier League, and it'd be nice to see if they can finally start keeping clean sheets in these easier fixtures. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's a bit of a mystery. Would it be worth buying West Ham defenders? Not necessarily. I don't know if I'd buy them, but if I had them already, if I had an Areola, if I had a Sofal, would not be looking to sell them despite poor results recently. And we're going to put Matty Cash in at the keep section as well, which is a bit of a risk on my part, but certainly today, which is Tuesday, I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, I think Cash is going to be fine for the Fulham game, and I don't think he's a priority transfer. Like, fair enough, if you want to move him on, and you already wanted to move him on before the injury, then fair enough. But I don't think it's a priority. So that's why he's going in the keep section. The latest reports are that the shoulder injury that he does have is not serious. It's not a big injury. And when you have those kind of like less significant shoulder injuries, he should be able to return to the starting 11 for Aston Villa fairly soon. And Fulham is a good fixture if you want a clean sheet, really, isn't it? And you still, Cash does provide a little bit in ways of those attacking numbers. So I think he could get back to getting some points if he is able to return. So I'm sticking my neck out here. I'm saying right this second, don't sell Cash. If we find out he is going to be unavailable for the Fulham game, then that changes everything, and he then becomes a priority sell. A lot of people looking to sell Kaoru Mitoma. Obviously, he hasn't been returning too much recently, but it's interesting that out of all of the midfielders that aren't flagged right now with the Dorito of death next to their name on the FPL website, Mitoma is the most sold midfielder. Of all of the perfectly fit and available midfielders, he is the most sold one. So, yeah. He is a player I do think I would keep ahead of a game against Sheffield United. It's obviously a phenomenal fixture, really good fixture, arguably the best fixture an attacker can have right now. So there's no way I'd be selling him. However, I do understand that his numbers are down. Brighton's numbers in general are down. They're not looking as good right now. They're kind of not in the great moment. And therefore, after this game week, I would definitely understand why you would sell him. I certainly wouldn't buy him, though. So again, Mitoma's going to be a kind of a don't buy, don't sell kind of player. I would prefer to go for someone like, probably like Mbumo at that kind of price range, I think. But certainly for the Sheffield United game, don't think you sell Mitoma for that. And we're going to put Erling Haaland as the other keep. A lot of people selling him. In fact, he's one of the most sold players this game week. Everyone is looking to get rid of him right now after his one-pointer against Bournemouth. A huge disappointment, don't get me wrong, but since Monday, since yesterday, Haaland has been back in full training. He's perfectly expected to be absolutely fine for this game week. There's no real concern. There's no real worry here. It was kind of taken off as a little bit of a precaution by the looks of things because obviously City were already 3-0 up in the game. You don't need to have Haaland. There's no point in risking him. But back in a tough fixture against Chelsea, I think he's going to be straight back into the team. And what I'm really, really tempted by is that Spurs fixture in game week, Game week 14? Game week 14 against Spurs. Haaland is going to be playing against a Spurs team that's going to be missing Romero and potentially Van der Ven as well. So it's going to be kind of a bit part Spurs defence against, the best striker possibly in world football. It could be a really, really interesting one for him. We also know Ange Postecoglou, no matter what the situation, as we saw against Chelsea, will play that high line. And Haaland is obviously a very good player on the counter-attack, which we haven't been able to see too much since his time at Man City, because usually teams do decide to defend quite deep against Man City, but Haaland is going to be able to exploit that space in behind because we know the pace and the power and the finishing ability that he does have. Even Vicario, the great keeper, is not safe from him. So would like to keep him because of, I think he's fine. I don't think he's going to be injured. I think he's going to play in that Chelsea game. And then after that, actually I'm kind of tempted by a lot of these fixtures, and I think they are a little bit better than maybe the fixture ratings suggest because of the kind of player he is. Well, speaking of Vicario, he's going to go on the avoid list just because of the defensive problems, the defensive injuries, the defensive suspensions at Spurs. Vicario is a great goalkeeper, don't get me wrong. He makes plenty of saves. He keeps the ball out of the back of the net, but Spurs are going to struggle. I know it's a good fixture against Wolves, and maybe in the one game week period, when we come to review this next game week, we'll probably look back and say, oh, I can't believe it. Vicario, scores, we got a clean sheet against Wolves. What was I thinking? But I don't think that's the case. I think when we look slightly longer term, we look at Aston Villa, Man City, West Ham. They're tough fixtures. Obviously, Spurs are missing those crucial defensive players. It is going to be a lot harder for them to keep a clean sheet in the upcoming game. So therefore, Vicario might get lucky against Wolves because Wolves are a little bit toothless in attack. But, in general, I don't think it's worth going there right now. I would hold off before going for Vicario. Wait till all of the players are back for the Spurs defence, I think. And Pinnock, really difficult to pick out a defensive avoid because I wanted to pick a player who at least some people were transferring in. But certainly a lot of the defenders people are bringing in, I actually don't mind them so much. I think they're pretty good transfers, but Pinnock was the one player on the most popular defenders that people are bringing in that I looked at and thought, Liverpool and Arsenal back-to-back? I don't think so. And I do think we need to consider that in game week 18, Brentford are going to blank. So we've got, you know, one good fixture between now and then for defenders, really. And that's probably going to be the Luton game. Maybe they've got one other okay fixture where they might be able to keep a clean sheet. And that's between now and when they blank. So really, how often are you going to want to play Pinnock? How often is he going to have good fixtures? And is he going to cause you more problems in later game weeks and force you to make a transfer in game week 18 when he does have that blank? So, yeah, in general, just not a player I'd want to go near right now, despite the fact he looks pretty good at 4.5 million. Decent price for him. Fixtures, you know, not feeling it. And the most popular transfer of the game week is once again going to be an avoid. Well, we called it with Nketiah last game week. Can we do it again with Jeremy Doku? Like, don't get me wrong, a nice FPL return for Doku, but man, did he overperform. I think he overperformed his numbers by something like 10 or 20 times. Like, yes, he got the returns, but the expected goals, the expected assists were super low in that game. And in general, you can see over the past 5 game weeks, he got 1.41 expected goals and 0.77 expected assists in his last 5 game weeks. And I know a lot of people want to jump on the bandwagon of the highest scoring player of last game week. It's what we all do. It's natural to kind of have a look at that highest scoring player from the previous game week. But he was playing against Bournemouth, who we know are a super weak attack. He was playing at home. But I think more importantly, what we need to ask ourselves is, why didn't we consider Doku ahead of a great fixture? If you didn't consider Doku ahead of the great fixture, why are you now considering him ahead of this horrible run of fixtures, or certainly more difficult run of fixtures? Well, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is because prior to the Bournemouth game, in his last 5 game weeks before that, in 4 of them, he scored 1 point because he is rotation risk. Even when he does start a game, he'll often come off before the 60-minute mark and he will score a lot of 1-pointers. He's not the star kind of like winger in this Man City team. There's lots of stars in this Man City team, which means any player, no matter how good they are often not going to be able to get all of the FPL returns, not going to get the bonus points, etc, etc. And Doku, despite his good performance, is going to get rotated again moving forward. He's going to get rotated in some of these games. We've got so many available players for the wings at Man City right now. Bernardo Silva, Foden, Grealish, everyone's available. Alvarez can even play out there if he needs to. So Doku is going to be super rotation risk. He's going to be a player that causes you more headaches. He is a player who blanks in game week 18 as well. So he's a short-term option really. But in the short term, the fixtures aren't great. So all in all, really not feeling this transfer at all. Don't like it. I think we're going to get back to 1-pointers. I think we're going to have more problems caused by him than not. And I think there are better options at a similar price. And Mbeumo is a player I've mentioned before, only 0.2 more expensive than Doku. So if you have Doku already, fine, fair enough. But would I be bringing him in right now? There is just no way I'd pick Doku over a player like Bryan Mbeumo, no matter how many points he scored in Game Week 11, to be honest. Game Week 11 was a freak game week, and if we make decisions, 2 rash decisions based on that game week, I think we're going to be in problem territory within a couple of game weeks when we start regretting some of our kind of rash decisions, I guess, because a lot of you guys have really strong teams. It just didn't quite click in the cursed Game Week 11. And of course, we've got to say avoid Nicholas Jackson as well. Difficult fixtures against City and Newcastle up next. In general, I don't expect Chelsea to score too many goals over the next 2 game weeks. I think they'd be lucky to score 1 goal in the next 2 game weeks, to be honest. We're not going to get the same results as we did it against Spurs. 9 men, high line. Jackson just being primed for that counter-attack. It was a very fortunate set of circumstances that I don't think is going to be able to be replicated over the next 2, to be honest. So, yeah, Jackson, nice price. Maybe we talk about him a little bit in the future, but honestly, with Nkunku coming back, with Broja now available, I don't even think that's guaranteed anymore. Just a player to avoid, given that like Game Week 11 is going to be very different from Game Week 12 and 13 for Chelsea, and I do truly believe that. So, yeah. Doku, Jackson, high-scoring players in Game Week 11, super high-scoring players in Game Week 11, the highest-scoring players in Game Week 11, but certainly not players I'd want to own in Game Week 12. So in summary, guys, like I mentioned, not really feeling the forward transfers this game week, and I really don't want you guys to rush into any rash decisions based on game week 11. Think longer term. Like, we all understand that it was a freak game week. It happens a couple of times per season where nothing goes to plan. It's part of FPL, and honestly, it's part of the fun, and I enjoyed the game week despite it being a tragic one. It was kind of fun, it was kind of funny, and it kind of reminded us all of how FPL can be sometimes, but it's all part of the game, and yeah, I just don't think we should make any rash decisions. So don't really like forward transfers. I think the focus really is going to be replacing a lot of our injured and suspended players this week. Maybe some moves we can make in midfield as well. So it's going to be defenders and midfielders. I think will be the most important players to be transferring this game week. So that's where I would be focusing my attention personally. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this one, make sure you drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here as well. All of the stats generated in this video were from the Fantasy Football Hub Opta stats tool. If you want to check out Fantasy Football Hub and get yourself a free trial to all of their amazing tools, check out the link in the description and you can go check it out, obviously, for free. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to tomorrow. 100 Experts is going to be back again, and there's going to be some really interesting moves and captaincy decisions to be made. So look forward to that. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates.